you parenting from conditioning or choice? Most of us walk into parenting carrying invisible scripts and hidden beliefs. So these are the rules that you've grown up with, the voices of our parents, grandparents, or teachers echoing in our heads. The ideas we absorbed about what makes a good child or a good parent. Before I had my children, I thought I had to be strong no matter what, stand firm, hold my ground. That's what I experienced growing up. And I believed that's what kids needed. Now, I'm not saying that that is always bad. There are times where, maybe standing firm is needed. But here's what I've come to realize. Often we're not parenting from choice. We're parenting from conditioning. And there's so much more nuance than simply picking a style and saying, I'm going to stick with this no matter what. So here is a story from my own conditioning. So I used to think that if you gave in, that you were weak, that if I was to soften, that I'd lose control and my kids would walk all over me, that they'd get away with it, that they'd run amok and never learn the rules and boundaries matter. I also thought they would stop respecting me. But those beliefs weren't really mine. I'd absorbed them from generations before me, from TV shows like The Supermanny and from a culture that told parents their authority mattered most, that kids needed to be controlled, and that adults knew what was best. And when I began learning about behavior, I realized something important. Behavior is just a symptom of a problem, not the problem itself. What I thought was the right way was actually my conditioning. So as I learned more about the science of behavior and children's nervous system and adults' nervous system, I noticed how these old methods didn't really work and they also didn't feel good either. I realized that they weren't aligned with the kind of parent I wanted to be or the relationship I wanted with my kids. So, the echoes of childhood rules. Think about the rules or phrases you grew up with. Maybe it was children should be seen and not heard, or children shouldn't talk back, or, perhaps brush it off, you'll be fine, when they hurt themselves or something goes wrong, or good girls and good boys always comply. These don't just disappear, they echo in our heads when we're stressed, tired, or triggered. And before we know it, we're repeating them with our own kids, even if we swore we never would. That is conditioning at work. So, conditioning versus choice. Conditioning says, I must always stand firm. Respect means obedience. And if I don't punish them, then they'll never learn. And hint. Often, it'll be conditioning if the sentence starts with I should. I should do XYZ, or they should do XYZ. Choice says, what does my child need right now? How can I guide instead of control? And is this rule about connection or is it even mine? So, why does this matter? Because when we parent from conditioning, we often act out of fear, control, or old scripts. Our kids pick up on that and they feel it in their bodies, even if we try to mask it. When we parent from choice, we pause. We notice what's driving our response. We decide whether it matches our values now, not the values handed down from decades ago. That shift creates space for genuine connection. It shows our kids that respect is mutual, not one-sided. So here's a reflection prompt for you. What's one rule or phrase you grew up with about behavior that still echoes in your head today? And do you want to keep it? Or is it time to let go? Now, it might not always be specific words. Sometimes it's more like a feeling that comes up when you feel triggered. So here's an example from my own life. I used to get really angry if my kids woke up before 5 a.m. Even if the clock said 4:58 a.m., I would be livid. I would literally spiral and I'd start to think about, I'd be like, they're not getting enough sleep, they're going to be tired, they're not going to be able to function today. Oh my God, it's going to end in so many meltdowns today. Waking before 5 a.m. is not okay. And I don't remember anyone ever telling me that or anything. But anyway, I try to force them to stay in their room and try to force them to be quiet, and they didn't have the skills to do it. And the more I tried to control the situation and the behavior, the angry I got. When I finally let that expectation go and I replaced it with a new one, thanks to breath work, I trust their bodies will get the sleep they need. I and then I also changed, instead of trying to force them to stay in their room, I just allowed them to quietly go put the TV on in the playroom with the door shut so they didn't wake other people. That was actually achievable for them. And I ended up feeling so relieved. I had been holding on so tightly to that belief and focusing and controlling the behavior. Honestly, the more you try to change behavior alone, the more frustrated you'll become. But when you can notice the beliefs under behaviors or the expectations and you can shift that, that's where the power really lies. So, looking ahead, these old patterns don't just live in our thoughts, they live in our bodies and our nervous systems. So, next week, I'll bring everything together that I've talked about this last few weeks, how the nervous system, beliefs, and conditioning form a cycle in parenting. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Any questions? We'd really love to hear from you.